This might upset a few of you, but I wanted to do this video because Daniel Bauer and Joe Mullings recently on LinkedIn have been talking about a couple of things, and it's a couple of things that I'm quite strongly opinionated about. Surprise. Basically, what we're seeing is that Ottava and Medtronic's Hugo are launching, and there's a lot of theory that these sort of complex robots will be put into the hands of the general surgery, endomechanical suture teams. That would sort of make sense on some degrees. But I want to talk about three companies. I want to talk about J&J, Medtronic, and Intuitive. And I'm going to put Intuitive in a different bucket, but I'm going to put J&J and Medtronic in sort of the same bucket, which is they're coming on this market. Let's talk about the US. And the logic would be we've got a big sales force of endomechanical reps. And with those endomechanical reps, surely we've got immediate coverage, go-to-market, leverage right across the country, right across the coverage of all the states. The problem is, in my experience, and I've been through this, selling robots is the most difficult, complex capital sell that I know of. It's more complex than selling something like a CT scanner because you're selling to one department. When you're selling something like a robot, be it an Ottava, be it a Hugo, be it an Intuitive XI, you're selling across the entire clinical spectrum. You're going to have to deal with all the different clinical stakeholders. You're going to have to deal with the nursing staff. You're going to have to deal with the sterilization staff. You're going to have to deal with the chief information officer, the estates officer, the COO, the CFO, the C-suite of the hospital. And unless you've got that ingrained into your brain of how that process works, because it's a really complex process that can last 18 months sometimes, maybe even longer. I think I've seen some of these be like 3 years from when you had the first interest from the surgeon all the way to the C-suite. And the problem is you need to be equipped to deal with that. Tomorrow morning, if I dropped Ottava into the hands of people who sell the staplers and the sutures, I think that's grossly unfair to those people. Now, as I said to Daniel, it doesn't mean that people cannot be trained. It doesn't mean that people can't upskill to it. But I'm talking 12 to 18 months for them to upskill and get there. And just dropping it into their hands is a recipe for disaster. You need specialist teams who do a business-to-business sell. This is not a rep to surgeon sell. I've said this so many times. And I think that the only way that companies are going to be able to really do this is to go and find the sort of people that have done capital sales before and then upskill them on the surgery side. And there are a rare number of individuals out there, very few individuals that have done the consumable sell, which is important for the case-by-case sell, instrument and accessories, and done the whole system sell of developing a program over 5 to 7 years. And the immense lift to get capital sales. It's really, really hard to capital sales. It took our team a long time to learn that. And this is just not something you can just learn overnight. You can't just dump it into someone's hands. Now, that doesn't mean that your team for endomechanical can't go out there and bird dog up deals, can't go and find out who's looking for a robot, who wants a robot, who needs a robot, who's excited to have a robot. They can certainly go out there and get the excitement going, get the front end going. But I am an absolute firm believer that if you put this in the hands of the endomechanical team, it will be a disaster for them as individuals. It will be a disaster for the company. You will not get the results that you think. And it will take way longer. And you don't get that many bites at the cherry. There's not that many robots that get bought. So if you fluff it on 3 or 4 robots out of 5, your hit rate's going to be low. That's what I want to say there on that. And again, especially as Daniel was saying, that individuals like him who had some background knowledge and things like selling towers and things like that, that really, really helped. If you've got the combination of consumables plus some at least basic, and I don't mean 20,000, I'm on about $100,000, $200,000 sales into a hospital, you'll kind of get the understanding and then you'll know what it takes to do that and who you have to see and the over 500 call points that you have to go through to be able to get that signature on the paper. And that's only the beginning, by the way. Then you have to do the whole implementation. And I can tell you, endomechanical sales reps are not going to be able to do the implementation of a robotics program. You're going to need the specialists in there. It's a whole team event. Then the other thing people say is, oh, well, let's go and hire a bunch of ex-Intuitive people. And this will upset some of them. And I'm sorry about this. I don't mean this in any derogatory way. But the problem is, Intuitive in the old days was selling against budgets and they were selling against other procedures. A lot of the older school of Intuitive, they were super skilled at selling into the system against the legacy laparoscopic. And they were the only ones there. And they had a monopoly. It was a certain way of selling and a certain style. I've seen today that a lot of, not all, and please don't take this as all, but a lot of the ex-Intuitive people really struggle when they have to go out and sell a competitive system, surgical system, against Intuitive, because it's really hard to do that, because you're selling against the incumbent. And that's a very different sell than selling against laparoscopy. And you're selling in a highly competitive market nowadays. Again, the natural thing you would think is, let's just go and hire a load of ex-Intuitive people, because they certainly know how to do the capital side. They do, but again, there needs to be expectation settings. There needs to be a different mentality. And also, it's on the company to provide them with the right assets to go and sell in a competitive way. They cannot be selling against procedures. They have to be knowing how to sell against Intuitive. Intuitive is the incumbent. Intuitive is the benchmark, and it's Intuitive who they have to sell against. And again, I've seen brilliant reps that are ex-Intuitive. They've been thrown into some of the new emerging companies, and they just suffer. It's not the same sell. They don't have the same support. They don't have the same budgets. They don't have the same technology. And it becomes a really, really hard sell. And again, that can be a disaster for the company. I just want to say that there's a rare group of individuals out there, and that rare group, no matter who they are and where they come from, are going to need to be hyper specialist in selling surgical robots. And if you're in J&J or Ottava, J&J selling Ottava, or in Medtronic selling Hugo, you need a rare breed of person that understands the capital, understands robotics, understands surgery, but also understands how to sell competitively against a number one incumbent. And finding that mix of talent is really hard. What you have to do is get as many as you can of those tick boxes ticked. And then you as a company, before you go off and say, right, start selling, you have to have patience, and you have to let them upskill. You have to let them understand how they are going to sell your system. The other thing that I'm seeing out there is I'm seeing a lot of churn. There's a lot of boards and a lot of investors that are saying, oh, we're not hitting the numbers on these incumbents. You're not going to. Just get it into your head. You're not going to. These are not going to be big numbers. These are going to be 10, 15 systems a year. If you're thinking you're going to sell hundreds, you're delusional. And again, it's not fair to put that on the people. This is really, really hard to sell. Give them time. Let them mature. Let them understand. But give them the training, give them the support tools, give them the information. Because if you don't do that, you're failing them. And as a board, what I would say to people is, you've got to have some patience. This does not happen overnight. It's 18 months. I see Medtronic launching in the US. They have to be very realistic about how many systems they will get in and the rate that they'll get them in. If you're Distal Motion, or if you're Moon Surgical, or you're CMR, you have to be realistic about what can really be sold in the US in that time frame. It's not an easy sell. It's really, really hard. It's probably the hardest thing I ever did in my career, and I don't know if I would even try and do it again. It's so hard. But just following on to Joe's post and Daniel's comment, there are individuals that can do it, and your job as an organization is to strategically use your endomechanical sales force as a way of getting the deals flow going, but then have a super specialist hit team that goes in to actually do the robotic sell them why they need it, sell the program, and then conclude that deal, and then do the hard bit, which is getting that product used in the operating room day in, day out, for it to become an actually active program. And again, I think people should be going out to the professionals out there who can find those people and can profile those people, because they are very hard to find. And I said, I think it was the end of this year or even last year, one of the biggest roadblocks that's going to be for companies is going to be the talent pool. Finding the right marketing people who know how to market this. Finding the right people who know how to do the health economics of it. Finding the right people who know how to do the implementation. Finding the right people who can be in the OR. and finding the right people who will be on the commercial side that will be doing this business to business transaction. So I just wanted to say that. And again, I'm sorry if it's upset anybody there. I really don't intend it to be that. I want it to be a reality check so that people can set their business in the right way. I want everybody to succeed. I want every company to succeed because I think it's healthy for everybody. And I think that one of the biggest risks that you have is that you put this in the hands of an incumbent sales force that is not prepared, not trained, and you're not going to be able to train 600, 700 people to do this. You're going to have to find those specialist individuals, and you only need a handful of specialist individuals at the beginning, and then build that competency within inside the company. I hope that helps, and I hope I've not upset too many people today. But it was a really great post by Joe, and it was a really nice comment by Daniel that he was absolutely right, that there are individuals that can do this. And your job as the management team of these companies is to go and find those individuals, nurture them, give them what they need, and make sure that that your first 10 to 20 installs of your system are absolutely bulletproof and none of those systems come back. I hope that helps.